And what's going on, guys? This is Kale here, coming at you with another video. For those of you new to the channel, I am an endgame player. Normally I would say with 3 accounts, but I have reached the levels of insanity. I am now on my 4th new account over here. So with that being said, this video is basically going to be kind of a new player guide with the current meta. This video is being recorded towards the end of December in 2022, so please do keep in mind, with this game in particular, the meta is always constantly changing, and that is definitely going to influence, what you're building and whatnot. So first and foremost, what I'm going to say is kind of my primary focus is going to be raid teams. Raid teams are going to be content you're doing, on a daily basis. It's going to be kind of your bread and butter as far as getting better gear, and kind of helping you progress to the end game. So with that being said, my focus is essentially building Doom 3.0 teams. And while that is still quite a bit of ways for this account, and this is my 4th account, so this will be Caraxes, while the Doom content is far away for Caraxes, I'm still kind of working towards that. And the reasoning behind that is that's going to kind of give you the best bang for your buck as far as, teams you're building, and I'm trying to build the more meta teams. So we're going to go into the roster, and first off, I want to start off with I guess maybe not two disclaimers, but one main disclaimer. One, it's going to be very dependent on what you unlock via orbs, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, but you do have 2 orbs that are very RNG based, and for lack of a better word, if you're unfamiliar with RNG, it basically stands for Random Number Generator, and it basically means luck. So based off of your luck on the orbs is kind of going to determine what characters you unlock for some of the unfarmable characters. And the 2 orbs, we'll talk about them in a little bit more detail later, but the premium orb and the mega orb are going to be very RNG dependent, and you're going to have access to these orbs pretty early on in the game, and you'll get a number of mega orbs early on, and you can get anywhere up to 100 shards of a character, and some of them are really good characters, some of them not so much. So some of that is going to be RNG dependent. But for me, but building my roster is very much about resource management, and you'll learn very quickly that this game focuses on resource management. So I like to divide my roster into 2 sections, and the first one here is favorited characters. And you'll notice here I don't have a lot of characters favorited. And if you're unfamiliar, the favorite button is going to be this one right here, the little heart. And I favorite characters that I am hard node farming. Now, this is where it's going to become a little bit roster dependent. I would encourage either farming characters that are going to build a raid team or help you build towards a raid team. Or sometimes other content, and I'll kind of talk about that in a little bit. But the other way I like to divide my roster, and it's kind of a little bit more, I think, less used, is the verse battle favorites. Now, my verse battle favorites is the characters that I'm really building as far as gear level, putting T4s into, and that I'm basically taking to their max potential. Now, in order to have a character show up in this screen, if you just click this little verse tab, or this VS, and then once you go into your roster, you can then filter by verse battle favorites. For me, this kind of laser focuses the characters that I'm looking at, and you don't have to scroll through the whole roster. Now, you'll notice here, it may seem like a random collection of characters, but all of the characters in here are actually for a meta Doom 3.0 and higher raid team. And I would highly encourage, working on one of those teams. And again, this is going to be RNG dependent on who you have unlocked. For me personally, I got very lucky with one of my Mega Orb drops, and I actually was able to unlock both Deathlock and Viv Vision, who are both currently unfarmable. But because I had those two unlocked, I was able to farm Hulkbuster in the Cosmic Crucible store, which we'll talk about later. But because I was able to unlock this meta team, they are one of the newer Doom raid teams, so for me, they're a safer investment. And that's part of the reason I chose to start working on this team in particular. I know that they're going to be around probably for the foreseeable future, and they're not likely to get replaced because they are only just a few patches old. Some other of the newer kind of meta Doom 3.0 teams, obviously the newest one is going to be Deathseed. So depending on, again, drops and how you're doing with the current events, Deathseed is another good option. However, keep in mind, characters like Archangel and Magneto are going to be locked behind essentially legendary requirements, so this team might be a little bit harder to unlock for a much newer player, as chances are, if you've got a roster similar to mine, I was only able to handle difficulty 1 on the Death Scourge, so it'll probably be at least another pass before, maybe even 2 more passes before I'm able to unlock Archangel. So that is kind of, we've covered essentially tech and our mutant raid teams. Bio is another one that, is currently in the process of being phased out. So with that being said, if you can build towards this Rebirth team, that is definitely going to be a team that's going to give you some long-term usage. Alternatively, you could also build the Web Warriors if you are unable to unlock most of these Rebirth characters. The Web Warriors are all pretty much farmable now in some way, shape, or form, and we'll talk about that when we are talking about stores, but those are all farmable. Next on the list, let's go ahead and talk skill. And skill is kind of a weird situation because it's a little bit of a hybrid team. Part of it is Secret Avengers. So the 3 Secret Avengers are going to be Cap Sam, Sharon Carter, and Maria Hill. Now, the problem with Cap Sam is he is a little bit, just an abbreviation for Captain America, Sam Wilson. He is farmable in one of the much later nodes. So again, I would say this will be dependent on if you get lucky and get him out of a premium orb or a mega orb. Sharon Carter is a little bit easier farmed. She is in the raid store. And then again, she's also in the new Villains 2.3 hard campaign, so that is unlockable after level 70. But again, I think she's going to be kind of RNG dependent, and Maria Hill is available in the War Supply, as well as in the hard mode of Heroes 2.6, and again, that's after level 70. Now, my only issue with possibly building the skill team is they actually currently really struggle in the higher Doom raids, so like Doom 3.4, it is very hit or miss with the Secret Avengers, and essentially the other 2 members for this would be Kestrel and Shang-Chi. So while they're a okay option, I do feel like if a next Doom raid team is going to be coming out, it's probably going to be skill. So these on my hierarchy would probably be the last ones I would choose to build. And as I mentioned, the other 2 in this one are going to be Kestrel and Shang-Chi. Now, Kestrel is going to be farmable in the Milestone 3 orb, and Shang-Chi is available in the Blitz store as well as in the Blitz orb. Now, our last team, so we've covered Bio, we've covered Tech, we've covered Skill, we've covered Mutant, so the last one is going to be Mystic. Now, Mystic, there is a lot of choices, and we're looking here, Mystic. Now, again, this is going to kind of come down to some RNG, because most of the Mystic characters are not going to be farmable, at least early on. So I would say kind of a common Mystic team that's a little bit easier and not Dormammu dependent is going to be the 2 Eternals. So you'll have Cersei and Icarus, who I was not lucky enough to unlock. I'm a few shards away from him. You'll then also see Spider Weaver, who was an event campaign and is currently unfarmable. And then you'll see Deathpool and Morgan Le Fay, who is going to be part of the Pestilence Scourge. So again, Mystic, while it is a pretty solid team, I think it's a little bit harder for a newer player to unlock, as most of the Mystic characters are all unfarmable. However, like I said, you could have gotten really good RNG, and you could have the 2 Eternals unlocked, you could have Deathpool unlocked, you could even have Spider-Weaver unlocked, either if you were playing during her event or you got really lucky with RNG. So I would say you'd want to take a look at a Doom Raid team and kind of work on that as what you're putting in the majority of your gear. So what I do personally now, you'll notice that I've got a number of characters up here for farming. And I am farming Captain America, as he is part of that Rebirth team, and he is farmable. So I basically do I farm his nodes every day. I then farm Vision over here for his nodes, and that's because he's part of that Bionic Avengers team that I do have unlocked. And Captain America is actually doubling as 2 reasons why I'm farming him. You'll notice he has the shield tag here, and that's going to lead into my next farming, and you're going to notice I have 4 shield minions. Now, the reason I have them up here is because part of the way to unlock Iron Man and get further stars on Iron Man is by having shield characters at various star levels. So I've kind of decided I'm going to go all in on Bionic Avengers, basically because I have the team already, and Bionic Avengers should carry me through Ultimus 7.5. So I'm basically trying to get them as big as possible. So I want to try to get Iron Man eventually to 7 stars, and to do that, I basically need to farm shield characters. So I have chosen, just because I already have them unlocked, Captain America, and 4 shield minions. And this is where the farming aspect is going to be very roster dependent. Vision is on here because he's a Bionic Avenger as well, and he's worth farming. Taskmaster actually should not be up here, so let's unfavorite him real quick. The other characters that I am farming is going to be Black Panther and Okoye, and the reason I'm farming them, and I actually need to add M'Baku on here as well, the reason I'm farming them is, number one, Wakandans are a pretty good team. They are used in multiple game modes. They are good in War, they are good in Cosmic Crucible, and they are also used for an event that comes by periodically. It's normally about once a month, that gets you access to elite, or rather not elite, but dark promotion credits. And those are going to be very important as you work towards the end game. But that's why those 3 Wakandans are up here, and Killmonger is on there as well. He is a Wakandan. He is part of that dark promotion credit event, and he's also going to double for another event that involves gold. And actually he's part of Skilletary as well, so that he also doubles as a training material event campaign character as well. But so what I do, I farm my farmables, and then once I have farmed what I can, and you don't want to go too crazy with this, make sure you're focusing pretty much just on one team that you're kind of working towards farming. Once that is done, I have then gone in here, and I am starting to take those raid characters that are kind of my bread and butter, and taking them to the highest gear level possible. In my case, currently with my level, the highest gear level is G11, and initially I was a little bit more scattered with this, and I was just kind of building them as I went because I didn't have a full team yet. But now that I have the Bionic Avengers, I'm going all in with Bionic Avengers. So I'm currently actually working on taking Hulkbuster to gear tier 11. Once Hulkbuster is at gear tier 11, I will then go on to Deathlock and then Iron Man. And then any additional energy I do have throughout the day, once they kind of become you can't farm any of their gear anymore, I will then move on to, one of the other characters. In this case, I'm trying to go with characters that I think are going to be usable for the longer term. So anyone that has to do with Rebirth. So in this case, Captain America and Winter Soldier. And then also anyone having to do with Deathseed. So we have Nemesis and Psylocke, rather. So that's kind of what I do with that. Now, how am I getting this energy every day? One of the most important things is you're going to want to do your 4 campaign energy refreshes a day, and you basically spend 50 power cores, and you get an extra 120 energy. This is going to have a dual purpose of, number one, giving you campaign energy to spend, as well as help you get your 600 raid credits that are going to be essential towards making sure raids are launched on a daily basis. You want raids launched every day. That's going to be the fastest way that you're getting gear, the fastest way that you're going to be able to improve your roster. You're going to get T3 materials and eventually even T4 materials. So that's kind of what I focus on as far as campaign energy. Next over here, you're going to have ISO 8 energy. Same thing, when you have the coordinated assault event, which is currently going on, I would highly encourage doing your at least 4 refreshes a day, so spending 50 power cores. And you're going to want to build up your characters with ISO 8. Again, you don't want to overstretch your resources, so I would highly encourage working on your raid characters first, and in particular, your main raid team first. So you'll notice here, kind of what I'm doing is I am taking them to, basically ISO 8 4, green 4 as I like to call it, and then once all of my raid characters are at green 4, I'll then take them to green 5. Green 5 is going to be the current ISO 8 cap for newer players, as you don't have as much access to blue ions and the blue ISOs until a little bit later on in the game, and that's something we can definitely talk about a little bit later. Also, while random events are going on, such as the Nemesis campaign, you want to make sure that you are farming the nodes, on a daily basis. Now, at the lower levels, if you are only able to kind of complete, basically easy and you're not able to do hard, it's not as important to do the refreshes of the energies here. You'll notice I haven't done any, because over the course of the 14 days, you're eventually going to cap out on all of this energy anyway. So you really don't want to kind of rush that. You notice here I've got 7 days still left, and several of these nodes are already maxed out where I can't get any more of the Nemesis shard orbs from anyway. So you don't need to really kind of go crazy on this one. In the later game, I would definitely maybe encourage that. But yeah, so I think I'm going to do, what I want to do is maybe break this up into parts so the videos aren't excessively long. So I think I'm going to call this essentially part 1, and with part 1, we are talking about, based off of your roster, finding a raid team that is in the current meta that you already have access to, or that you can easily get access to. I'll definitely post an infographic of the current Doom 3.0 meta teams, and look at your roster and decide, okay, I've got this team, this is going to be my primary focus, and go from that. And then you can kind of look at, what characters do I need to farm that's going to help build this team up. Most teams are going to have, for the most part, a legendary character in them. There are obviously a few exceptions to that, but most of the meta teams will have a legendary, so, you'll be farming characters that kind of lead you into that. So we'll call part 1 choosing your raid team, and part 2 we will talk about, what resources you should be buying from the supply store, what orbs you should be opening, and also we'll talk briefly about the arena. So hopefully you guys enjoyed part 1. I will be doing part 2 to follow up rather shortly. If you did find this video helpful, please feel free to like and subscribe. And as always, I want to thank you so much for watching. Hope you're having a good week, and take it easy.